Ward August.
Go from Terry. Good evening. Welcome to the October meeting of the North Platte Public Schools Board of Education. Roll call, Sheila.
Matthew Peterson.
Present.
Skip Altic.
Present.
Joanne Lundgren.
Present.
Ivan Mitchell.
Present.
I would move to excuse Ivan Mitchell.
Second.
Roll call, Sheila.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Skip Altic.
Aye.
Joanne Lundgren.
Aye.
Angela Blazey.
Aye.
Mark Nicholson.
The Nebraska's Opens Meeting Act legislates the methods by which public meetings are conducted. Information pertaining to this act is posted on the back wall of the boardroom. If you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first special presentation, Mr. Spatansky.
So it's my honor this evening to present the first two Bulldogs of the month for the North Platte High School. And we're going to start off with Natalie Sexton. She'll be introducing her family, talk a little bit about her high school experience, and then we'll move on to Mr. Colton Tilford, and he'll do the same. So we'll first invite Miss Natalie Sexton.
Okay. Hi, I'm Natalie Sexton. My parents are Mandy Williams and Tyler Sexton. In my years of high school, I've participated in soccer, student council, and FCA. I've maintained a 4.0 GPA all throughout high school, and that's still including this year so far. And in my free time, I work as a PT tech, and so I'm going to further my education at UNL and study pre-physical therapy. So, yeah. About me.
Natalie, do you want to introduce yourself? You're here, right?
Yeah. There's Mandy Williams. Tyler Sexton.
All right. I'm Colton Tilford. My parents are Travis and Amber Tilford. Through my years of high school, I've competed in football, basketball, wrestling for 1 year, and track and field. I've maintained on honor roll for all 4 years. Last spring, I was on academic all-state. One of my favorite memories of high school is beating Omaha Westside this year. And after high school, I plan to go to South Dakota State University to play football.
Okay. Job is here.
He said he was going to be here.
I still have a thing in the papers. No, and he listens. Whatever you're telling him, he does. All right, next up, Terry with the foundation report.
Good evening. I'm excited to say that the backyard barbecue and Change Wars was a success this year. Made a little bit more money than last year, but I think it was just fun to be in the schools again, and the kids were participating. Really great. This does support our Teacher Reach grants and the Prepared to Learn Fund, and then 70% of the funds go back to the buildings. So this year, we're going to be able to give over $10,000 back to the buildings. So we're very excited about that. And then we'll be able to do about $3,000 for Reach grants just from Change Wars. And then the backyard barbecue, we had 12 businesses competing for those wonderful awards. If you didn't hear, Allo Communications won the pork category, the North Platte Ambassadors won the beef category, and Equitable Bank won the other category. And then, of course, our fan favorite was the class of 1992 with their big pig with the head with the west side with the apple in its mouth. So I'm very excited for that. We also, the foundation helped, there was a PACER camp prior to the barbecue. And so we provided 110 student access to the barbecue that night, as well as to the classrooms in each elementary school that won the highest amount raised during Change Wars. So we did try to provide access to and the teachers and administrative assistants along with those students to be able to attend the barbecue and hopefully come to the football game. So that was very exciting. And of course, we've kicked off Homework Club. And we have that running at 5 elementary schools with 9 teachers that have stepped forward again. And the unique thing is at McDonald, we do have a STEM club that's just dedicated to STEM. And they are willing to help with the students get dismissed and those kind of things, which was a concern and why we usually use Kids Club kids for that activity. And the foundation does want you to know that we do have funds. If a parent has a kiddo that needs some one-on-one tutoring, we do have some funds to help with that. I know Teaching and Learning has provided a list of tutors out there. So that's what's going on in the foundation. Thank you all for those that were able to make it to our events and support our events. Any questions? Great.
That was a great turnout, I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then the night ended really well too. That was the other thing.
I know. It did. It was a great night. Thank you.
Barry, can I get a list of the teachers helping with that homework club?
Dr. Rhodes.
Thank you. Just to start off, this is somewhat belated, but congratulations to our girls golf team who qualified for the state championships. They completed their first round, their 18 holes earlier today in Norfolk. Congratulations to Carson Morrison, Abigail Jones, Kaylee Carlson, Haley Matthews, and Madison Priest. Matt looked up earlier, we have 2 girls that are tied for 5th and the team's tied for 5th. So we have one more round to go tomorrow, but congratulations to those girls and also Coach Kaminsky. A few other items, it's hard to believe, but this marks the 9th week of the school year. So we will be a quarter of the way through this 22-23 school year by the time we get to the end of the week. If you remember, parent-teacher conferences were held at the high school and Adams Middle School during the week of September 12th. K-6 parent-teacher conferences will be held next week. And there's 2 evenings that are K through 6, both elementaries in Madison choose for parent-teacher conferences. And then during the week of November 14th, the high school and Adams Middle School will hold their second quarter conferences. And a lot of that has to do with both the schedules at the high school and Adams Middle School. Just another FYI, we do have no school for our K-12 students this Friday. We are having a professional development day. Mrs. Busher has worked with the Boys Town organization, so we're bringing some training out from Omaha in the morning from 7:45 until 11:15. Our elementary teachers will be trained in the well-managed classroom. And we have invited our paraprofessionals as well to both these trainings. And those key elements, I'll just kind of read through them real quickly. Motivate students with challenging social and emotional, behavioral, and academic needs, reduce severe discipline problems, increase student and teacher satisfaction, improve administrative intervention processes, react positively to problem situation, improve students' physical and emotional safety, and reduce absenteeism. In the afternoon, the Madison, Adams, and high school teachers and staff will be trained on learning safe and secure schools. And they'll start in the Performing Arts Center at 12:15 and run till approximately 3:45. The components of the safe and secure schools: build strong student-teacher relationships, decrease acts of verbal and physical aggression, promote respect and encourage individual responsibility, respond calmly to disruptive behaviors and avoid power struggles, blend social, emotional, behavior support with academic instruction, and reduce absenteeism. As a reminder, the state education conference is November 16th through 18th. Those registered are Skip, Joanne, myself, Mr. Simpson, and Mr. Mills. That is at the CHI Center in Omaha. And school districts were released with their ratings on October 3rd. That is embargoed information. And so at this time, we're actually working with our cabinet to kind of scour our data, our achievement data, and make sure that's correct. We do have some questions that we came up with for ND. We'll be sending those questions in. They had indicated when that email was sent on October 3rd, they thought it probably would be about 4 weeks before it would be released publicly. So once that is released publicly, we will present to each one of our subcommittees so you kind of have an idea. And then, of course, we will be getting information out to our public as well. So we can look forward to that. And just real quickly, Mr. Mills and I met with Terry last week. And we had nominations for the August and September employees of the month, both classified and certified staff. We will be awarding those in the next 2 weeks. And so it'll be kind of a busy October meeting that we'll be recognizing probably 3 different sets of employees across the district. We'll include October in there as well. So we're excited for that. And of course, that's something that's a little bit new, is that we're going to have some board recognition for those individuals as well. Terry's always done a really, really great job with the foundation in awarding those individuals out in our buildings. And we've kind of streamlined our process a little bit this year, and that's the reason it's taken a little longer. But we're actually using building award winners to come into the pool at the district level. And then with Terry's help in the cabinet, then we take a look at those people that were nominated at the building level and we choose those people. So we're excited to be able to bring that to you in the coming months.
Good.
Questions for me? Thanks.
All right, board comments. You can go first.
Okay, thanks. So it was a pretty busy month. When I was kind of looking back over the calendar, it was really hard to believe all of the things that have happened. But I was able to attend the homecoming parade and the pep rally, and I think it just keeps getting bigger. It seems to be really well attended by community, and of course all of the recognitions and everything that happened of our students is phenomenal. So Mr. Tilford, who left, he and his sister were crowned homecoming king and queen at that pep rally, and that was really fun. I was also able to attend the area membership meeting. That was here, and it was held at the high school, and it's always a good opportunity to go and to meet with other school board members around our area, because it's more local, and was able to attend a couple of classes, one on social media use and the other on interacting with the public. So that was always really good. Nebraska School Boards does a really good job. And on that note, I also attended earlier this month one of the candidate forums. And I like that Nebraska School Boards does this. They do it every election year. You don't have to be running for an office to participate in the candidate forum, which I think it's a really great thing that they do for anybody who's ever interested in running for the school board position. And it's a free class that they offer. And so I think it's always a good learning opportunity for people who may be interested in running for school board at some point. Let's see, also went to the budget hearing that was required. It was held by the county. The city of North Platte was there, Mid Plains Community College, Maxwell, Hershey, Wallace. And there were quite a few people that were there. Not a lot of comments directed directly to North Platte Public Schools, but always good to hear people's concerns. I learned a lot from some of the farmers and ranchers in the area and things that, you know, when you're living in North Platte that you don't always hear about. So it was good to have some of those reminders. I was able to go and read at Jefferson. I read to the first grade, the third grade, and the kindergarten. So that was probably one of the weeks I've ever had being able to do that. And especially the first grade, they were a huggy bunch. And so it was got lots of hugs, and it was a lot of fun to be there. So I told them to expect me back. So I've already been working on my books for October. And then also was able to visit Lincoln Elementary. And it's been, I had been to Lincoln before, but it was, you know, pre-pandemic. And so it was good to be able to go and visit with the new principal there and just kind of see how they had changed. They're down from a 3-track to a 2-track. But it seems to give them some room a little bit to, you know, to do some of the things that they weren't able to do previously, and visited with her about potential growth coming to North Platte, some of the challenges that they're facing. I heard similar things at Lincoln as I did when I was able to visit with Jefferson in the spring. And so it's good to go and have those conversations, I think, and especially when you can identify patterns. So then I was also able to go to the backyard barbecue and been to football games this year, traveled with the band, and also most recently went to the Blue Stockings play. So that was, I always can appreciate teachers that put in extra time outside of the classroom. And even though they do get paid to do these things, they do it because they love it. And Mr. Mesner and Mrs. McDaniel have been going above and beyond, I think. So just really appreciate all of the time and energy that they put in with their students. I will say also on my visit to Lincoln Elementary, it never ceases to amaze me when you go to a school and you see teachers in action and you get to walk around in the classrooms and see the things that they deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's just amazing, and I can't speak enough about the things that they do.
I also attended the area membership meeting a couple weeks ago. I attended the same sessions as Joanne. One of the things that I think is notable is that this is the first year we've had the area membership meeting at the high school. In the past couple of years, they've done it at the convention center. But the staff from NASB said that they do conventions like this all over the state at different schools. And Mr. Spastansky, they said that North Platte High School was the best, most well-prepared, and the staff went over the top and above and beyond to help them out. So I thought that was great to hear. So thank your staff for us for doing that. It was also my first time in the high school since the skylight had been completed. So it was nice to see that. I know that was a headache getting that done, but it looked really neat. Also, one of the sessions we went to was in the library. And so it was my first time in the library in a while. And it's just amazing what has been done in there. And so I think it's great to see. And, you could tell that it was just a very welcoming place for the students. So that was good to see. And then I also attended the backyard barbecue. And so that was a fun event. And that was actually my first opportunity to go to a home football game. And so it was also cool just to see how many people were there and how excited everybody was. And, there's a lot of community support. And so it's great to be able to see that and the pride that our community takes in our school and the football team. So it was a fun month.
Angela?
I was able to go into Madison just today, and then I've been working at the different high school functions. So it's fun to be able to be there and to, like you guys said, how great everything is kept up, and the staff's been awesome. I got to go into a classroom today and sit for a whole period and learn some math. So that was very fun and exciting. And to see the kids catch on to a new concept was very exciting. So we've got some amazing teachers out there.
Yeah, we do. All right, I have several. I attended the Nebraska Speech, Communication and Theater Association convention. I've been a member of that for 40 some years. But the reason I bring that up is that Scott King and Megan Kelly are speech coaches, and Brittany McDaniel, our drama instructor and coaches the One Act, were there. And they not only were there, but they also did some presentations about taking over teams and how to work and so forth. And I was very impressed with that. And it's also a great way to network with people. It was held in Gering, if I didn't say that, but yeah, it was, the convention is always good, but to see the North Platte people there was really wonderful. I also attended the NASB area meeting. It's always good to meet, as Joanne said, specifically with the people from our area that are also board members. A couple of them I know from the legislative committee that I'm on, but the others, you might see them twice or 3 times a year. And it doesn't matter if it's a big school or small school, we're all facing the same issues. And that's always good to hear. I also, with Joanne, attended the joint budget hearing on September 27th. And there was well over 100 people there, as Stuart and Dr. Rhodes were busily getting out more chairs. Then I visited Adams Middle School on October 6th. It was a great tour, went into classrooms, which is I always like, went into a 7th grade classroom and they were playing a game. It was a math class playing a game on the computer, and they were teamed together, and how quickly they were doing. And it's a game, but also you have to get the answer right. And then the scores were popping up on the screen in front. So I thought that was great. And they were really into it. I mean, yeah, so much fun. Clean building, Stuart. And then explained all the changes they're doing in the library there. Adams.
Oh.
I was still at Adams. How they're trying to make it more like the high school library.
Oh, yes.
And explain. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, and well, it's not all completed. And so explained to all, and I could tell they were real excited about it, which was great. And there were a lot of kids in there. And I also attended Blue Stockings on Saturday, the play that was at the high school, and the crowd Saturday for a Saturday night was amazing. Yes, I mean, having done plays there, it's one of the bigger crowds I've seen in a long time. So, and the play itself was excellent. The kids were great. I sent Mrs. McDaniel a note about that.
Just a note, the Friday night audience was about as big, and that was competing with the Husker game.
Yeah. So that's really good.
They
But
did
yeah,
a phenomenal job.
so it was, and Joanne's daughter was in it and did a great job too, by the way.
Thank you.
I told her that, but yeah, so that was my month. All right. Committee reports on October 4th, 2022, meeting the Personnel, American Civic, Curriculum, Student Services, and Communication Subcommittee. Mark.
Well, we all arrived a little bit early, so it began at 7:58. Skip Altig, myself, and Lazy, Kevin Mills, Todd Rose, and Stuart Simpson were all present. We opened up with the discussion of the NPPS purpose and direction. Went over that statement and what's being done through the school to carry out that statement. Excuse me. We had a discussion about special education transportation and that the practice of leaving children unattended is not something that's viable anymore due to liability issues, and KSB is advising us on that issue right now. We did talk about 2023, 2024 staffing and the possibility of maybe establishing a dean of students for the schools, possibly up to 5 of them. That's something we'll discuss more in the future. We had an opening discussion about administrative salaries per statute and things that we'll talk about a lot more. It's board policy 1011 for those curious. And we'll just talk about a lot more going forward to December. We had an ESSERS update from Mr. Simpson, talking about the HVAC upgrades at Adams McDonald's. Jefferson's the only school we still need that needs an HVAC update at this time. We talked about enrollment, which we'll talk about a lot more tonight. We also discussed, McKinley and the remodeling taking place here in the building. We're shown that, and we adjourned at 8:46 a.m.
And October 6th, 2022, meeting of the Finance, Facilities, Operations, and Legislation Subcommittee. Joanne.
So I'm going to tell you that our meeting went a little bit longer than yours, but I'm also going to tell you that we had a tour of McDonald Elementary, which you guys did not get. So,
Because of HVAC.
So, well, I'll cover that here in just a minute. So those present were Stuart Simpson, Matt Peterson, myself, Ivan Mitchell, Todd Rhodes, Laura Coburn, Ryan Stearns, and Kim Flanders. And we also reviewed the purpose and direction of North Platte Public School District. Then we had a little bit of a conversation with Ryan Stearns from Hughley and Associates. He discussed some of the options regarding replacing some of the doors, windows, HVAC, and lights at McDonald Elementary. And then we, of course, took the tour and were able to see some of the said windows and doors and, some of the things that they're proposing that we change. And Mr. Stearns was able to visit with us about some of the challenges that are associated with some of those projects. So if we're able to get everything up and going, hopefully that will be happening this next summer. So then we also reviewed the current facilities footprint in the district. Mr. Simpson presented current costs for insurance and steps taken to help control the increase in our insurance premiums. We discussed the ESSERS 2 and ESSERS 3 and identified the remaining funds in ESSERS 2 and reflected on what we will be doing with ESSERS 3. The reduced budget will be reflected in the 22-23 budget. And then we talked about the budget. So Mr. Simpson discussed the current unofficial enrollment for the district, and this number will drive our numbers for state aid for 23-24. Then administrative salaries, we looked at the timeline for establishing those salaries for the 23-24 school year and reviewed the current construction at McKinley and adjourned at 9:24.
They got a tour. All right, thank you. It's time for our consent agenda. Our adopted rules of parliamentary procedure, Robert's Rules, provide for a consent agenda listing several items for approval of the board by a single motion. Most of the items listed under the consent agenda have gone through board subcommittee review and recommendation. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all board members and public in advance to assure an extensive and thorough review. Items may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member, and the approval of financial claims and reports. And it was Joanne and Mark this month, correct?
Yep. It was good. Janelle is really good. We're glad that that Stuart has her around. Stuart did a good job too.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Been moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. Any more discussion? Roll call, Sheila.
Skip Altick.
Aye.
Joanne Lynn Green. Aye. Angela Blazy.
Aye.
Mark Mickelson.
Aye.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
That is approved. Now we move on to our reports and discussion items. Number one, preliminary 2022-2023 student enrollment. Stuart.
Attached, you will see our unofficial enrollment for the 22-23 school year. This is pulled as of, and I want to say October 3rd. I know the state says October 1, but I'm not quite sure if they're going to force us on October 1 since it was a Saturday, or Monday, the October 3rd, when we can upload the data at that point in time. But still, no matter what, just to maybe reiterate what goes on with student enrollment. Every year on October 1, we have to pull the enrollment of all the students that are in attendance. From there, we upload it to the state. At that point in time, we go through a process where we verify, and Angela's across from me, so I'll just look at her. If Angela is physically in a seat here in North Platte Public Schools, then her number for student enrollment is tied and says that. So if all of a sudden Lexington is claiming her on their enrollment, there will be a discussion about where is the physical body and who is educating that student at this point in time. This has been in effect for about 7 years. So a lot of times, for the most part, school districts have everything accurate, but we still go through that process. Then from the 15th of October till the end of the month, it's sort of any additional items that have to be cleared up. For example, we're still going through some processes with SRS, which is our special ed program, to verify the students as we upload those into the state NSSRS system. So there's a little bit of information being gathered throughout the month. Then on October 31st, this number, or whatever number it becomes, is posted, becomes our official one. And as Joanne mentioned, that number, for my purposes, the total amount, drives what our state aid will be for the 23-24 school year. The other information that's internal is for just the board. I show it on my monthly financial report, where individual schools or grades are in regards to enrollment. I know Kevin Mills works in regards to, our class sizes, and do we have the teachers or the bodies there to help educate the students. So we use the numbers a little bit more detailed for information that drives us. I look more at the 30,000 foot number, but you can see from this report what we look at and where we were last year to this year.
Stuart, can you explain, because I've looked at this a number of times and it took me a little bit to figure it out, but the bottom lines, basically how the numbers correlate and what.
So the bottom, I'm glad you brought that up, Matt, because this is something that I look at, because a lot of times I get questioned by various people in regards to, why did we drop, or where did we drop, or what's going on. So if you look at last fiscal year numbers, that 249, we'll just say that was our kindergarten class last year. So this year they're in the first grade. So what it's doing is comparing our first grade attendance to last year's official enrollment of 249 that were in kindergarten, and it works its way up to 12th grade. So really what it's saying, and we can hit the 12th grade, that last year when they were 11th graders, they were 306 in the class. Now, as 12th graders, currently we show 321 for official enrollment to the state. We see various pockets, and we can watch the trends where we lose students at first, at fifth, and then we really do gain a lot back at our high school level, whether parents are bringing their students back for a lot of additional classes that we have compared to other institutions, or they want to bring them back here because obviously they want some additional opportunities that are not provided where they're attending. So we see the decrease and then the increase at the high school level. if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thanks. And then the other thing is, we had, so obviously this is the number that the state uses to kind of calculate our state aid for next year. But then we were talking at our finance subcommittee because Mrs. Flanders said she already has 5 kids, I think she said, going to McDonald that.
Correct.
So
5 kids from
Our
different families. that we're living
yeah,
in.
so our
Yeah.
October 1 number says for McDonald's says the 222, but we're gonna have at least 5 new students there throughout this year. So then can you explain how then the state looks at that and potentially then we can get some additional funding?
So what will happen, and this will come out in our audit here in the next month, but what the state does is we have to then not only report on October 1, but at the end of the year, we have to upload our attendance at the schools for average daily membership and average daily attendance. They look at the membership number. But what it'll do is, so if we have, I know Adam said they have 2, we had 5 at McDonald. If we see that shift where it's all of a sudden increasing, at the end of the year, they'll verify that number. So if we'll just take, for example, we increased by another 12 students. So we're at 3550 now instead of 3538 based upon additional students over the course of the school year. What the state will do is then take that number, 3550, respin our state aid, and we will see for the 23-24 school year, an additional dollar amount that will come in besides our calculated state aid, because they said you did receive students. We didn't see them at the beginning of the year, but you received them throughout the course of the school year. So therefore we will respin your state aid accordingly.
Good question.
So that's a year in arrears. So it'll go on the next year's state aid and it's a prior year adjustment. So it's right on our state aid certification document that we get. So
that money, the respin money would actually then come in the 24, 25,
23, 24.
23. Okay. Yeah. Cause okay. Gotcha. And I think we talk about this too. I mean, every month when you put out your financial report, there's, I think one of the first pages there is the enrollment number. So, I mean, you're looking at this monthly to see where we are compared to previous month. And
I will say this, yes, I am looking at the numbers, but why I put that at the front of the page is that that's what we're here for. We're not here for the back data. We're here for the students. So we got to see why we're here for it. And then from there, we move back and start talking about that.
Any other questions for Stuart on that? Okay. The 2022-2023 SRO contract, Stuart.
This last year, we approved this preliminary contract in May and was sent to the city. Just to let you know, in regards to the city, what the city does, will accept it, sends it off to their attorney. Their attorney only brings it back in September with all other interlocal agreements for one massive approval at the city council level. And then from there, returns it to us. The only thing that in talking with Chief Reeves was a couple of things. Number one, normally in the past, we've put dollar amounts within the contract. And this year it was get it to them and then they'll add that. So you will see at the end, there's a 3-page addendum addressing the full dollar amount that will come in. So we may want to look at this contract next year and get it to the city, let them add the information within the contract and then get it back to us for approval in October like we normally do. I mean, but we can have that discussion down the road. Second of all, we always have added an addendum that was just signed by Chief Reeves and myself to pay our SRO some overtime. Because when we have prom, when we have any dances, or when he is needed after school for whatever the case at the high school or Adams, we are required to pay their overtime at this point in time. And we have that separate addendum in comparison to what was identified in the contract as a regular SRO. So just to let you know, on the addendum, for our first one, we pay 75% back to the city of the total agreed amount for our SRO, which is 84,000. And then we do have a second SRO, and we'll pay 50%, and this one is 66,000. So just to let you know, we have two different dollar amounts for a total of, we use our SROs at 2 full-time FTEs, but working with the city, we do pay a portion.
Any questions for Stuart on that? Okay. District assurance statement, Dr. Rhodes.
So annually, districts are to complete a Rule 10 assurance statement, and that is an online checklist and assurance statement that is through the NDE portal. It's due November 1st. And so this is, they call it Rule 10. It actually is Rule 92, Chapter 10. So I don't know exactly where the Rule 10 came from for sure, other than it is on some documentation. And so one of the things as districts go through this, if there is a specific code or indicator that we mark no on, then we are to complete a waiver that that lists that deficiency and how we plan to correct that deficiency. I am nearly completed with this assurance statement. We're marked all yeses on everything and have been for a long time. So that's important for accreditation purposes and very important to make sure we continue to receive state aid as well. But I'll just real quickly, you know, when you're talking about this Rule 10, so what you're talking about is you're making a commitment that all your teachers have a valid teaching certificate. We make sure that we have graduation requirements that are approved by state statute and NDE, as well as instructional hours. There are important components to Rule 10 around elementary instructional programs and what we offer for language arts, math, science, social sciences, health, music, PE, and so on and so forth. Middle grades is the same way. And then, of course, high school, it's spelled out to the amount of instructional hours that we offer, not just the graduation requirements, but then you need so many hours of math and language arts in terms of what you offer for your instructional hours as well. Overall, total instructional hours is a part of this as well. And then lastly is the component of correctly endorsed certificated personnel as well. And we talk about teacher shortage a lot. And the reason that, you know, it's pretty critical in terms of your instructional program, 95% of elementary teachers need to be endorsed as elementary teachers. In terms of middle grades, 90% of those folks need to be endorsed as a middle grades teacher. And at the high school level, it's 80%. And so a lot of districts are, as they're making things work with their employees and personnel, are having to really study endorsements close to make sure that they're still following Rule 10 and they're meeting those percentage guidelines as we go through. So I will tell you that large school districts don't have quite the kind of the issues that smaller districts do as it relates to the 95, 90, and 80% rule in those areas. But nonetheless, you know, we have to take a look at those things. It isn't just about a teaching certificates. Make sure you're endorsed, you're in the right building, and that we fall above those percentages. So just a quick report on that assurance statement. It is due on November 1st. And again, it's nearly completed. We worked with both Mrs. Carlson and Mrs. Douglas on this as well. So questions around that?
Monthly financial and budget report, Stuart.
Our fiscal year was ended, and we went through with the auditors. Thank you, Angela. But some of the requirements that are established for our end of the fiscal year reflect into September. And what I mean by that is that, as I mentioned to you last month, we're required by the state to accrue property taxes, or let me back up, taxes that the county collects for the month of August onto our 21-22 school year. So with that, we don't close out our fiscal year until closer to the 15th or the 20th, pending when we get the taxes. And after a little bit of cleanup from our department to be ready for the audit. So when we go through this, when we look at some of the information, it'll be referenced because of how we handle reporting requirements at the state level. So first of all, Sheila, if you could go to page 3, back one.
That is my page 3.
Really? Look, okay. 4. I got enrollment here. Oh, you got the wrong one.
Okay.
That's 831.
So is it the same enrollment we just pulled up a second ago? That report?
No, you have the wrong financial report up.
Let me go find it. You visit while I find the one you sent me.
Okay. So, first of all, I, as always, and I mentioned this before, we have the official enrollment on there, and right now it's just showing number 1 grades as well as school buildings, and showing the same number. But I wanted to just highlight that from the standpoint of that's our first and foremost mission, and then after that, we'll talk about budget. When we look at, and if you're following along on the computer.
Well, it'll be the wrong one attached to the board agenda then too. I'll have to fix it.
No, it's the right one.
Okay, let's see if I can get the right one here then.
When you look at, and if you're following along, if you look at page 6, and we'll read when Sheila gets it back up, we'll scan it quickly. But this is sort of a Stewart. As I talked to Erica or the cabinet, it's like my geek area. So, I mean, they have their student stuff. I have my financial stuff, but it really does help me zero in on what's going on with our individual. And we can use that one, Sheila, if that's
the most recent one I had. So, okay. So you want page 3, you're thinking?
No.
So you want
to go, keep going down.
6 you're thinking?
Nope, keep going down. All right, the top one. There you go. So what this really does is hone in on all the funds that we have to oversee. So when we set the budget, when I report, when I pay bills and our claims audit, I'm looking at all different funds that we oversee. When we talk about it, I try to break each of the funds down, especially in the general fund, by special ed grants and so forth. But I wanted to focus a couple of things. Number 1, on the bond. As you know, in the bond fund, we are not paying off. We will be paying off the lake in December. And as you see on the beginning balance for this fiscal year, we have $143,117. We're going to be paying out $122,000, or roughly right in there, for bond principal and interest in December, and we'll be concluded with the lake bond. So after that, after we conclude this fiscal year, then we'll be talking about at least transferring the remaining funds back to the general fund at some point in time. Second of all, what I want to point out is if you look at our QC PUF fund, our qualified capital purpose undertaking fund, that has $1,014 in it. Right now, we continually raise the funds for the bond payments over the course. And if, just to remind you, when we do set our our budget and our property tax request. Those dollars do not go into effect until January. So we're collecting it technically for the next fiscal year in the process. So all I'm really saying is that we have the funds there to pay off what we have budgeted for, but then in the process, we're going to be collecting for the next fiscal year's payment on those bonds. Those are the two that I want to bring out. But if you could go to the next slide, Sheila. We always look at our monthly cash flow, and you'll see the dot is dramatically, well, I say dramatically, it's below where we normally start the fiscal year with. And what represents that decrease a little bit is that the State Department has been really on top of it in regards to paying on our grants a little bit more consistently than we have in the past. So with that, when you look at our grants for last year, we received a lot of the funding. We were getting it in, and they were paying it on a more timely basis compared to in the past. So this month, they're not as far behind with grant reimbursements. They do have those August claims that we put in still pending, but at least we're not sitting with, 2 or 3 quarters out, waiting for those funds to come in like we have in the past. So that's why you're seeing a little bit less. So really what this report does is just compare the revenue to the expense coming in, does not take into account where we stand as far as our plus our cash reserves that we have. So with that, it's just showing the trend of our revenue to expense over the course of the fiscal year. And other than that, I'm going to conclude with that. You can take a look at your monthly financial report, and it really does break out where our student activities are, where our school nutrition is, and some of our other funds if needed.
Questions for Stuart? I have a couple.
Okay.
First of all, we had a budget hearing at the end of August. You remember the date of that?
That was August 29th.
Okay.
It was at 5:30 here in the boardroom. So.
And that's set by state statute. That we have a separate budget hearing.
Correct. We have to have a separate budget hearing or a budget of expenditures compared to our property tax request. And we sort of, Joanne mentioned it tonight. We started talking about the 23-24 budget already. And it's just every month we start talking about it. And then we also remind, especially at the finance committee level, sort of our timeline that we have to be aware of. And when we get closer to April, May, June, I start reminding the board of the requirements. And we have set at least the budget of expenditures in the past on the Monday after we received our certified valuations on August 20th, because on August 20th, we get those, then we have to report. And the board, I will say this, the board and administration had to clarify in the past when we were doing it before we received certified valuations, why all of a sudden the change in property tax requests. So we shifted that hearing to after the 20th to make sure that we, number one, got that certified valuation. And then at least when we published that piece in the paper, it was all up to date. Now, obviously, the next piece was our joint public hearing.
Right. And then how many speakers did we have at our budget hearing?
We didn't have anybody come forward in regards to public comment.
And then we had a meeting to accept the budget the day after the joint hearing, correct?
Yes.
And my question is that what would have happened if we wouldn't have voted to do that?
Okay. I want to say a couple of things in regards to the jump. For us, actually, as Joanne mentioned, was the city. I'm trying to go the people across the board. The city, Mid-Plains, us, Hershey, Maxwell, and Wallace were there. All of us grew greater than 2%. So the requirement that was established by 644 2 years ago by Senator Hansen said that we had to have those joint public hearings, and they were going across the state. Now, in that, why was it set on September 27th? That was established by, I want to say NARCO, but I think it was the County Clerk Association that said, everybody should hold their meeting on the 27th. Well, for us, and for all of public schools, and I'm not quite sure about city and community colleges, but for us, that really put sort of a crimp in us, because we had it on the 27th, and I have to get all public documents to the state by September 30th, or 3 days of gathering all that data, putting it together, and then submitting it to them accordingly. So with that, then we had to have a board meeting on the 28th so we could adopt it, because part of the requirements that I have to have is to I'm looking over at Sheila, get the minutes plus everything else put together and submitted to all the entities that require submission by the 20th. So with that, that's why we had to hold it on the 28th. I hope I answered your question, but I really wanted to put a little bit more of the timeline.
Yeah, but what would happen if we had not?
Then if we had
accepted?
not, then we would be in violation with the state auditor's office. I'm not quite sure on NDE, but I think that would withhold state aid at that point in time. In the county clerk, then they would not have any information. We would have to have a meeting, at least at the county clerk's level. I'm not quite sure on our budget. We would still have to adopt a property tax request, because by the 13th, they're mandated to adopt all the levies for all the entities. So we would be in violation with our state auditor. We would be in violation with NDE. We could lose state aid, or at least postpone it until we get it in. So
Okay.
a lot rode on those 3 days.
Okay, thank you.
Stuart, I just want to say, as far as the joint budget hearing went, I heard about a few others around the state, and ours in comparison went off really well. And I know that you and Dr. Rhodes worked a lot with the other entities that were involved with that, as far as planning how that was going to run, because that was something that was not directed by the state as far, and so I think that's why there were a lot of other counties that may have had problems with how they were running theirs, just because there was no direction. But I appreciate the time that you guys put in preparation for the budget hearing and everything that went on with that. So
Thank you.
All right. Time for public comment. Public question. Oh, legislative update. Sorry, Stuart. Well, the other
We're
thing,
going to get it tomorrow from Tristan on
there's
the
a whole
radio.
lot on this.
Not a lot. I think, though, that I was thinking about this on what we were going to talk about, and there's still a lot going on. And why I say that is that as of tomorrow, there's 4 weeks left till Election Day. And we have at least half of our senators running for that. And in that, and at the NASB meeting that we were talking about, we know that there's the revenue and the education committee that, and the speaker, that are up for renewal. And that is very, we won't say concerning, but we watch that wholeheartedly, because number one, the speaker really does set the direction for the legislature. And then obviously how the person addresses education really affects every educational institution in the state. And then obviously the revenue committee really does affect how we're going to fund not only us, but the whole state. So within the next 4 years, we're going to be watching a lot of what's going on and who will be going in there. And then, as we go down to the state conference, then we'll be seeing, what happens next at that level.
Is there any talk that either of you have heard through your groups of looking at 644 and revisiting perhaps some of the requirements and maybe tweaking some things now that it's a you have one session?
We
one
heard
round of-
potentially 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, is kind of what and we've heard that from Becky Russell from the county as well. I think probably first of all, we have not gotten a bill yet. So I think they're still kind of tabulating all those dollars on the postcards. And then I don't know for sure when that report is due from each county clerk. But it's potentially going to be pretty high ticket. We've heard some rumors that Lancaster County was, what did they say it was pushing?
Around $72,000.
Around $72,000. So I think there's probably some incurred costs that maybe the senators didn't think, and obviously that's going to be put, if we're paying for it, it's to a degree placed back on the taxpayers. So I think you might see something this session that would amend that a little bit, but I think in 2 years is kind of when we're hearing. I think they want to give it a couple of years to see, if there's any consistency with cost and just how those joint public hearings go across the state.
Any other questions? We will know a lot after the election as far as who gets elected for the legislature, governor, et cetera.
Correct.
So, and then my committee will meet that Wednesday morning of the state conference. The NASB.
Yes, and GNSA meets that Thursday night around 4:00 and sort of has a discussion
Okay.
also.
Yeah, ours will be Wednesday morning. So, all right, now public comment. Public questions and comments may take place at this time in the agenda. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a guidelines for public comments form with the date, public topic addressing, name, address, and the name of any organization you represent, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting.
I have none.
All right, I will not read the rest of it. Our only action item, requests to amend the 2022-2023 school calendar. Dr. Rhodes.
So these two are really modest changes. And so we're asking you to amend anytime that we are asking students not to come to school and we've had a school calendar that's already been approved, we're going to give you a rationale for amending that. And then we're going to ask for the board to amend it. So the day before Thanksgiving break is November 22nd. And Mrs. Busher, did we start this last year, the mental health day at the high school? So the mental health day at the high school is the 22nd. And we will have juniors and seniors mandatorily report to school that day to attend the seminars. We are not asking freshmen and sophomores to report. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't take part in that. They certainly can, but it won't be mandatory that they attend that event. So that's on November 22nd. And then also we have ACT and pre-ACT that will be proctored and given to sophomores and juniors at the high school on March 21st. And so we won't ask our freshmen and seniors to come to school on that day. So those are the two small changes that we're asking you to consider this evening.
I would move to amend the 2022-2023 calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Why don't we offer that to the freshmen and juniors? I mean, you said that they could come, but.
Mrs. Busher, do you want to come to the table?
So when we first did this day, we wanted to make it unique for students to choose. We want it to be like a conference for students, so you can choose a breakout session. And finding breakout sessions for 1,300 kids is really tough, like presenters. I mean, that's a conference, that's a national conference. So that was our rationale the first year. But one of the things we kind of discovered in what happened last year is it's some mature content. We have some sessions on dating violence. We have some sessions. The presenter spoke about a suicide attempt. So we also felt like the The content was very mature, and our kids handled that very well because we did have upperclassmen versus if maybe, maybe some freshmen that aren't mature enough to handle some of that content. But we have told the counselors and administrators, if you have freshmen and sophomores that say, I really feel like I need to attend this, or I would really love to, absolutely. But forcing them to be there with a maturity level could create some problems with
That makes sense. Thank you.
Good question. Really
Did
good
you
question.
get any feedback after last year from the students?
We did. We did a survey with them, and a couple of things. We did one long, like they could choose one breakout session, and that was in the morning, and it was 90 minutes. The presenters and the students felt like that was a long session. The students really felt like they could only pick one of several. I think we had 13 different options. So they asked that we repeat the breakouts. So the way our schedule looks this year is there'll be 2 breakouts in the morning and then 1 in the afternoon. And they're all repeats. So kids can really wanted to hit one, you can go to what you want. And it's really individualized for the students. I mean, there's tons of different topics. So.
Good. Thank you, Brandy.
Thanks.
Any other discussion? Roll call, Sheila.
Madeline Green.
Aye.
Angela Blazy.
Aye.
Mark Nicholson. Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Skip Alter.
Aye. That is approved. That was our only action item for tonight, just future board calendar. Next Monday, the NASB will have a member virtual lunch with the gubernatorial candidates, Pillen and Blood. One goes from like 12 to 12:25. One goes from like 12:30 to 1. I think a link came in the email today from NASB. So if you're interested in that, all you'll have to do is get on the Zoom. Don't forget, statewide general election is November 8th. That will occur before our next meeting. State Education Conference, which we talked about already, will be the 16th through the 18th of November. The Nebraska Children's Health and Education Summit is November 30th in Boys Town. So if you're interested in that, you need to talk to Sheila. And there will be new board member workshops held by the NASB. That the one in North Platte will be December 6th. And that is goes from like 8 in the morning to like 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm not certain where it's going to be held, but I got a flyer on it, but I didn't say where it was. That is not just for new members, it's for any member that wants to go. So if you want to go, you need to let Sheila know. And I think they're holding off till after the election for registration, right? I mean, for the deadline for it.
Yes.
It'll be after so if you're interested in going to that. And then the President's Retreat will be in January in 2023. And that isn't just for presidents, that's for anybody, any board member that wants to go. I believe it's in Ogallala this year. Marcia, I think, said that at the NASB meeting, but the specific date she didn't give us yet. So, but that will happen in January. Most time it's been in February, but yeah, it's January. Okay.
Move to adjourn.
A second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Roll call, Sheila.
Angela Blazy.
Aye.
Mark Nicholson. Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Skip Alter.
Aye,
Madeline Green.
Aye.
we are adjourned.